All right, welcome everyone. Today, we're going to break down a really crucial concept for any business that's operating across borders. It's called permanent establishment. And trust me, it's the key that basically unlocks a country's right to tax your foreign business profits. So picture this, you're expanding your business. You're making sales in another country. It's exciting. But it also brings up a massive question. Do you owe taxes on those profits to that country? As you can probably guess, the answer is, well, it's complicated. Well, the answer to that really comes down to this idea of permanent establishment, or just PE for short. I like to think of it as a legal tripwire. If your business activities in a foreign country are significant enough to step over that wire, boom, you've created a PE. And that's the green light for the local tax authorities to say, hey, we get to tax the profits you're making here. And this right here is why you absolutely have to care about this. It's pretty simple. If you don't create a permanent establishment, then generally you don't pay local income tax on your profits there. So you can see, understanding these rules is step one for managing your international tax strategy and making sure you don't get hit with any, let's just say, very expensive surprises. Okay, so how do you actually know if you've crossed that tripwire? Well, tax authorities use three main tests. Let's dive into the first and most common one, the physical presence test. This is all about having a fixed physical base of operations in that country. And this is a really key distinction, not all physical spots are created equal. A sales office, a factory, a branch, places where you're actively making money, those are pretty clear triggers for a PE. But a location that's just used for support stuff, like a warehouse that's only for storage, or an office just for buying goods, that often falls under a special exception and might not create a PE. So what does fixed actually mean in the eyes of the taxman? It's not just about having an address. The location needs to be a specific site that has some level of permanence. It can't just be temporary. You also have to have control over the space, maybe through a lease. And here's the kicker. It has to be used for your core profit-making activities, not just for tasks that are preparatory or auxiliary. Okay, now here is a super common trap that trips a lot of people up: subsidiaries. A lot of folks assume that if they set up a separate subsidiary company in another country, the parent company automatically has a PE there. But that's not how it works. A subsidiary is its own legal entity. Its office is its office, not yours. They're seen as two separate things, at least on paper. All right, let's move on to test number 2. This one is a special rule that's mainly for things like construction, building sites, or big installation projects. And this one, well, it's all about the clock. When we talk about these kinds of projects, it really all boils down to one magic number: 12 months. Yeah, the rule here is pretty straightforward. If your construction or installation project on one site lasts for more than 12 months, you've crossed the line. Bam, you've got a PE. Finish it up in under a year, and you're generally in the clear. But you gotta be careful here, because tax authorities look at this stuff really closely. The clock doesn't just start when the real work begins, it starts with the prep work on site. Any delays or work stoppages, yep, they're included in the count. And you can't try to game the system by splitting one big project into a bunch of smaller contracts. If they're all connected, they'll likely just add up all the time together. All right, our final test. This one is probably the trickiest and honestly the most surprising for a lot of folks. Why? Because it shows you can create a P without an office or a long-term project. This one isn't about places or time, it's about people. It's pretty wild, right? A single person can become your taxable presence in a whole other country. This whole thing is called an agent PE, and it gets triggered when someone, an agent, acting for your business, has the authority to finalize and sign contracts in your company's name, and they do it over and over again. So the crucial difference here is between a dependent agent and an independent one. Think of a dependent agent as basically being on your team. They're an extension of your company. They probably work just for you, you tell them what to do, and critically, they can sign deals for you. That creates a PE. But an independent agent, like a general broker who has tons of other clients, they're running their own business, so hiring them won't create a PE for you. So at the end of the day, it all boils down to this one single question. Does this person have the authority to legally lock our company into a contract? If the answer is yes, and they use that power regularly, then you have almost certainly created a PE. Okay,
So we've walked through the three big tests. Now let's bring it all home and talk about what this means in practice.
Let's just boil this all down, shall we? You can pretty much assess your risk by asking yourself these three simple questions. If you're looking at your operations in another country, just start here. This little table gives you a really clear high-level view of where you might have some PE exposure. So the big takeaway here is that PE risk isn't just something that happens to you, right? You can actually get ahead of it. It's really a three-step process. First, just assess what you're doing using those questions we just talked about. Second, document everything. I mean everything, especially the limits of your agent's power and their contracts. And third, structure your operations smartly to stay on the right side of the line. And that really leaves us with a huge question for the future. You have to remember, these PE rules were designed decades ago for a totally different world. Now, in an age of digital nomads, global teams that are spread out everywhere, and even AI that can close deals, what does a fixed place of business even mean anymore? How tax authorities are going to adapt to this new reality, that's going to be one of the biggest stories in international business for years to come.